3, 2, 1, sweet. We are live. This is fun. So I'm here with my friend Dawn Marie. Let's see if I can actually point the right direction the first time.
Yes, there you
opposite.
Go. Got it.
It's opposite the way I think it is.
Right.
And then if I move the screen around, it's going to mess you up even more. But
okay, yeah.
Man, everybody, thanks for hanging out with us today. We are going to spend the next couple of minutes just saying hi. Dawn and I are going to talk about the weather because she's in the great state of
Idaho,
and I'm in the great state of Oklahoma. So chances are our weather's a little different. But as you guys join us, why don't you jump into the chat? Let us know where you're watching from. Let us know what your weather's like, maybe what you got on your schedule today. And we'll take about 4 or 5 minutes. Just let people get here. We'll chat a little bit. And we'll get started in some content, getting to know my friend Dawn here in just a few minutes. Sweet. We almost got almost 10 people here already. So that's nice and quick.
Hey, guys.
Yeah. All right. So what does the weather look like in Idaho right now?
Right now it's nice. It's sunny and beautiful, gorgeous. It's in the 70s right now. But we have had a long, wet spring, which usually isn't the case. I didn't know that Idaho is actually high. Well, where we are. So we are close to Boise. So we are kind of like southwest Idaho. We're considered high desert. And so it usually doesn't rain here from like May to October. And so the fact that we have had a lot of rain this spring is unusual. And it's been a little bit cooler than normal. And I love hot weather. So I am waiting for the heat. But right now it's gorgeous. So.
Well, we got Karen here from Indiana. She said it's a little cool. Now, Karen, I'm curious, what's a little cool to you? Because I bet I already know just now I learned about Dawn that she likes it hot weather. Mm-hmm. And I grew up in Michigan. I like it cold. So I bet hot to you is different than hot to me. So what temperature would it be, Dawn, if you said it's hot?
I like over 100.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I thought we were going to be fast friends. I'm not sure about that.
But see, I don't like humidity. I grew up in Minnesota. I just moved out here 3 years ago. So I hate the snow and I hate humidity because Minnesota is very humid. Yeah. And so out here we have dry heat. So it's very different than if it was 100 degrees and humid. No, I would not like that at all.
So but you and I talked in Florida, right? I think that's the last time we talked in person. And my wife's from Minnesota too. What part of Minnesota?
So central, like an hour and a half north of the Twin Cities.
Okay, because my wife lived in Richfield, right outside of Minneapolis. Yep. Yeah. So we've got a bunch of. So we got. Let me see. We've got sunny and cool. Marilyn Lacey, good to see you, my friend. I'm glad you're here. I just got to see her a couple days ago in Sacramento, so that was cool. We've got Keisha is in South Carolina, 82 and sunny.
Ooh,
my friend,
South Carolina.
Yes, Brian down in San Antonio, 88. And Karen, she clarified it for us. She likes it in the 70s, no humidity. So, yes.
That's great. I like that too. Although that's a little cool for me. Yeah.
Well, in fact, when I just got back from Sacramento and I noticed that I was the only person wearing shorts and everybody else was wearing sweaters and sweatshirts and jackets. I'm like, oh, I guess it's cold. I don't know. Yeah, it was great. But Michaela, I know, is from California. Chris, you live in Florida and like in the 80s. After that, it's a sauna most of the time here. Yep, that's true. Yep, that's great. Oh, and here's my friend Laura from Oklahoma City, not too far from me. She's not sure since she's inside a warehouse. She works at Hobby Lobby, is where she's at. Cool. But she's come down and hung out with me at my office for a little bit. So we're going to try to do more of that in the future. That'll be a lot of fun. Cool. Well, we'll take about a minute and a half or more, and then we're going to jump into us talking to Dawn. Becky says, hi, Mark and Dawn. And she's watching on YouTube. That's nice. And Chris is also. Oh, Karen. In fact, I noticed now there's a bunch of people watching on YouTube. That's great. And I'm sorry I don't see your name, but it's good to see you too. I don't know who you are, but yes, somebody that was in Sacramento. That's good. That's great. Got 20 people here now. This is great. All right. Well, Dawn, let's just get into getting to know Dawn a little better. So let's just start with telling a little bit of your laser journey story. When did you get your first laser? What made you do that? What'd you get? Kind of start there.
Okay, so you know what? I should probably figure out the year. It was, I think it was December of 2018.
Okay.
I would say is when I got my first laser. And like a lot of people, I started with a Glowforge.
Yep.
Because I didn't know that was the only one. They did great at their marketing. And
Sure.
so I got that.
Did you put yours in the kitchen like everybody else and cut chocolate?
No. Spare bedroom. I did have a spare bedroom. But yeah, I got it to enhance my parties because I was doing my sign parties and I was just doing stencils at the time. And so I was like, you know what, this would be a great tool to have to enhance my parties, do different kinds of parties, add to the stencils and so forth. So I got my first laser and it has been a whirlwind ever since.
So I didn't know that you were doing sign parties prior to the laser. So
yes.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I started doing sign parties at the very end of 2016. And so 2017 was my first full year. I didn't know of anybody doing parties. Maybe there were people out there. I didn't know of any. So everything I did was trial and error. I remember coming home like in tears because I couldn't figure out why the stencil wasn't sticking or, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so trial and error, what wood was great, what stain I should use, all that kind of stuff. And I had 4 parties my first month in January of 2017. And then my second month, I had 8. And my third month, I had 15. And by month 6, I had to hire my first instructor to help me with the parties because I was doing like 5 to 7 a week by myself. And so in July, I hired my first instructor. And then by the end of 2017, there was 8 of us.
Goodness.
Yeah, it was myself. And then my dad was like my full-time wood cutter. At that time, again, I was only using stencils and I was doing palette signs. So we had like 1x4s and would make these palette signs. And so he would get the wood, cut them up for me, make them like party size, and then bring them to me. And so thankfully he was retired from his career and could help me out. And then I had, there was like 6 instructors that went out and did these parties for me. And by the end of that first year, we were doing 9 parties a week and I had instructed over 200 parties. And so that was 2017.
So wait, pause.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's a lot.
It was a lot.
That's a lot. So, I mean, I feel silly asking this question because I know the answer, but when you started, did you have any idea it was going to do that so fast?
No, I had no clue. Of course, in my head, I was doing the math and I was like, hey, if I could have this many parties, I can bring in this income, like, wouldn't that be great? And I had zero clue that that's what would happen. So I have 7 children and at that time they were 1 to 11 and my husband was a power lineman and he was gone all the time. And so I always tell that to people because now coaching people, I hear a lot of, excuses about like, I have kids, so I can't do that. And I say, instead of using them as an excuse, use them as motivation to go out and do something and have them help you and, kind of make it a family thing. But anyway, so no, I had zero clue. I actually was like, if I could do 1 party a week and get out of my house and talk to people that are over 3 feet tall, that would be amazing. Like, I mean, just not a child. If I could talk to adults, that would be awesome. So 1 party a week was my goal. And I surpassed that my second month.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So, and I just kept going with it. I didn't know where it was going to go. I just kept rolling with the ball.
We're absolutely going to jump into kind of what you're doing today and how you can help people. We'll talk about that, but I'm going to kind of bounce around just a little bit because I'm so interested in things you're saying that I can't not ask about them. So when you first started, I'll find out where you are now later, but when you first started, where did your parties take place?
So I was 100% mobile. So I went to wherever the customer wanted me to go. Most of the time that was at their home. So I would do them in people's garages most of the time, in their back shed, at their place of business. If they owned a business, we would do at, bar and restaurants, in the back room, kind of wherever the host wanted me to come, I would go to. So we would go there, set up the party, make the signs, clean it all up, and head out.
Okay, I this is definitely out of order, I know, but once again, my brain is squirreling like crazy, like it tends to. If you look back, how long ago was that, you said?
So 2017 was when it was really.
Is it 5-6 years ago, something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what's like one thing, and by the way, everybody, I haven't prepared her for any of this, so this is completely shooting from the hip. But like, what's one thing that you look back and you just kind of laugh and you say, I can't believe I did it that way, or I can't believe I was doing that? Is there anything that you're kind of glad you don't do now, but at the time you thought it was great? Is there anything that sticks out like that?
Well, I would just say, so I'm the kind of person that will just do it and then try to figure it out later. Like, just that kind of mentality. And I think, like, looking back on how I started, I probably should have figured out my process before I went and taught the parties. But I didn't really know what I was doing. And I was like, yep, let's do this. And I made signs myself, but when you're doing stuff for yourself, you kind of do it probably different, or maybe you cut corners or use a material that you found cheaper or whatever. And so that's what I was doing. And then when I had a friend reach out to me and say she wanted to hold my first party, I just said yes before I kind of figured out my process. Yeah. So looking back, I didn't use the right stain so it wouldn't dry. I used contact paper for my stencils, which didn't really work. I had them weed it themselves, which was not good. Like, I just did all these things like wrong, but the signs turned out beautifully. And it was that picture that was posted from that party that just the snowball started rolling. So I was thankful for it. But looking back, I was like, I probably should have gotten my stuff in order before I started.
But clearly you had some happy customers because it kept going up.
Yeah, they loved it. And then again, I just continued to, I like to say, like, do review, adjust, and do it again. And so I would do it. I would review it. I would adjust what needs to be fixed and then do it again. And I just kept doing that over and over and over again. So
you did parties and it kept getting more and more each month. You hired some people. You've been growing your own staff very slowly in-house, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. You got dad in. Is dad still working with you?
Yes, he is home full time. Yep.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. That's great. And then, you started hiring some people, got more and more busy. I think you said, I'm sorry if I missed it. Were they hosting parties for you? Is that what was happening?
Yes. So eventually, once I hired my instructors, then I stayed home and I only did all the pre-party prep, and I was in communication with all the hosts and all that. And then my instructors would just they would come to my house, grab all the supplies. I would tell them where the party was at. They would go instruct the party and then drop off everything when they're done. So then I just kind of reloaded for the next one. And I had 2 sets of everything so we could hold 2 parties at the same time.
So thinking back to when you went from just you to who was your first one, or it doesn't matter who it is, but you went from you to, I guess, 2 of you, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
When you think back to that, did you do what most of us did and you ran yourself ragged for a while before you hired somebody, or did you kind of do it fairly quickly?
No, I didn't. I was pulling my hair out before I hired somebody. I mean, I was doing it. I was printing all my stencils and everything in the master bedroom. I had piles of wood in the living room. I didn't have a shop. And again, it just occurred to me, you asked if dad. So in my head, I thought my husband, and that's what I said. No, my dad is no longer doing my boards. When we moved out to Idaho and he stayed in Minnesota, then he was kind of done with that. So
he's not hosting parties in Minnesota?
Correct. No longer hosting parties in Minnesota.
Dang it, Dad. Come on.
Yeah, I know. But so I didn't have a shop. we were living in a much smaller house, you know, all the kids, I didn't have a space for it. And so it was crazy busy. And then again, 5 parties a week. So a lot of times that would look like 1 on Friday night, 2 on Saturday, and 2 on Sunday, because the weekends were the most popular times for people to host these parties. Yeah. And that was just a lot of work for myself. But as a business owner, you know, it's hard to hire somebody and then have them like go out and represent you, right? Like this is like your little, you know, little baby, your little project, and you don't, it's your business. You don't want to have the wrong people, you know, represent you. And so it was hard to hire that first person and just kind of send her off or whatever. But I feel like she was a good fit, and I trained her in, you know, she would come to parties with me first. I kind of did 3 parties together and then sent her on her way. So, so it worked out well. But yeah, I was at a point where I just couldn't physically do it anymore.
Yeah, I bet. Well, I'm going to put this on the screen real quick. I don't know if you know Michaela. She's great. But she and her husband are wonderful people. And she said she'd love to learn that model. I just have my garage at the moment. Michaela, stay tuned, because Dawn's going to tell us more about how she can possibly help you in just a little bit, which that would be great. In fact, let's take just a second and tell people how they can find it, and then we'll talk about more what you do. But you've got a website and you've also got a Facebook group. Tell everybody about both of those.
Yeah, so you can find all my stuff at my website. So it's just dawnmarieleggett.com. And once you're on the website, if you click on sign parties and DIY kits, I think is the title, that will bring up all the stuff I have on sign parties and so forth. I also do some other stuff that's on there, or you can find me on Facebook. I have my group is the most active. I have Sign Parties 101 Facebook group. And then I have a page and Instagram and stuff if you just want to follow. But if you want to be a little bit more engaged, Sign Parties 101 is where kind of my people are.
And I will tell everybody, I'm in her group. I'm a lurker. I don't say much, but she really helps a lot of people. So if you're even mildly interested, you should jump into her group and find out more what she's doing. And I know I completely jumped the gun, because what we should be doing is, so at this point in our story, we started making signs, we hired some people, and we haven't gotten to what you're currently doing. Right. So this was 2016, 17. How long did you do it that way before you started sneaking into what you're doing now? And I'll let you tell people what you're doing now. But tell us kind of how that started to transition and what that looked like.
Sure. So 2017 was my first full year, the crazy year, whatever. And then 2018, kind of same thing. I just used my instructors to go out to the parties. And I started to pay attention to the thought that kept coming into my head of how can I teach others how to do this? And so finally at the end, probably like fallish of 2018, I started Sign Parties 101. And that was just, you know, a group that I opened up, and I just wanted to see if there were other people out there that would be interested in learning how to do what I did. Yeah. And throughout that next whole year, so basically the end of 2018 and all of 2019, I just poured into Sign Parties 101, answered all the questions, told everything from A to Z on what I did, what didn't work, what you shouldn't do, what did work, and so forth. And then at the end of 2019, I decided to take all that information and start a paid membership for those people who wanted to really be serious about the business side, and then go in depth more with me in that. So January 1st of 2020, I started Sign Party Central, which is my first paid, it's not really a course, it's more of just a membership where there's new content every month. Yeah. So that's kind of the transition from doing the actual parties to then teaching other people how to do the parties.
So have you transitioned completely out of doing parties yourself?
Correct.
Okay. And do you still have a team doing parties or no?
I don't. When I moved here to Idaho, which was almost 3 years ago, I did open up a studio here in my town. So a brick and mortar that we did do parties at. We had people come, and it was great. But I did it more for the learning, the teachable moments that I could show my paid members. Like, hey, don't use the excuse of I don't know anybody, so I can't do this, because I moved from Minnesota to Idaho, which is 1,400 miles, and I didn't know anybody either. And I was able to open up a studio, and this is how I did it. And so then after about a year and a half, I decided to close that, just because I could have went through and found people to run it for me and all that kind of stuff. But my focus is really teaching people now. And so I wanted to do that, full time, and give my members my attention. And so I decided to close that. So I did do it for a while here, but now I don't do the parties. I just teach people.
I think we're not dissimilar in that regard. I know we're doing different things, but we both love to teach. Yeah. And you're a really good teacher, and I've been enjoying following you. And I think our journeys are different but the same, right? Because I started making physical items. I opened my own store. I sold quite a few items, stumbled into realizing I'm a decent designer, and then slowly started moving away from selling things and started just selling files only. And then, of course, started teaching in the way that I'm doing now. And even though we're teaching somewhat different, it's kind of the same. We're teaching people how to do what we do, or how to use the tools that we have. So that's kind of cool. I love it. So let's take a minute and walk people through your website so they can see maybe what they can see there. Let me find my buttons here. So if you go to, let me go back here and let's scroll to the top. Why don't you just walk people through? You tell me where to drive, and kind of give people some highlights of what they can find, and I will show them.
Okay. So just scroll down a little bit, and you will see basically what I do now is I do the sign parties and DIY kits. So that's kind of my teaching other entrepreneurs how to do what I did. And we can go there in a second. And then the business mentoring. So what I've done my past 3+ years doing this online and growing an online business, bringing my husband home, how we kind of do it all. That is my heart is really helping businesses grow regardless of what it is. Like, it doesn't have to be in the laser world, whatever. Just yesterday, I was on a mentoring call with a photographer that wants to grow her business. And so that's kind of that. So now I mentor other businesses wanting to grow. And then the Shop Dawn's Creations, that's more of my retail side for people around here, realtor gifts, cutting boards, things like that I do for more just local people. That's that. So if you want to go to the sign parties and DIY kits, I can kind of explain what's there, because it's kind of morphed into a lot of different things. So I know when people ask, like, okay, so what is it that you do? And I was like, okay, how much time do you have? Because
right.
But so if you want to scroll down a little bit, these are my different things that I offer people depending on which stage they're at. So that first one, Pathway to Parties, is just that's like a beginner course. It has over 20 videos on it. It's only $7. It's more of like, you're totally new to this. You don't even really know what sign parties are. I don't know if I want to do them. Like, where should I even start? I always tell people, just start here. I will walk you through. The videos are small. They're just like 5 to 10 minutes. And I go over all the things from what is it to how to have your first one in that Pathway to Parties. In the middle there, my Sign Party Central is kind of what I said before. It's like the main hub of learning how to do what I did. So I walk you through the things that are in Pathway to Parties, but then also every month we go over trainings. I give a handful of new files. We have tutorials, there's Q&As, we do Zooms, like all the things. That is in Sign Party Central. On the right, the board box is a membership for those people who only want to focus on DIY kits. So that was started at the fall of 2020. I realized there were some people in my membership that wanted more focused attention on just like one project. So I take that project and I do supply lists and instructions and like 15 different kind of professional graphics that you can use with that project and so forth. There's at least 2 projects a month, and a lot of times more. I do bonus projects and marketing help and all that kind of stuff. But that's focused on like just people that don't want to do the parties, but they maybe want to just send out kits to people.
Cool.
And then the bottom is just kind of, so the digital files.
Yep.
So that's for people that, you know, are doing this, have a laser, you know, SVGs, there's MDF, whatever on there. The middle is my coaching call if you wanted to just chat with me. And then the one on the bottom right, the Sign Party Institute. So that one's in the works. I want to do a complete, full, exhaustive, it's very in-depth from start to finish on how to do sign parties like I did. So that's going to be like a ton of videos, and I'm working on that as we speak. So
would that be, and please correct me if I don't get this right, if somebody wants to just dip their toe in, maybe the pathway to parties is where to start, maybe?
Yeah,
and then
I always tell that to people. Yeah, because then if you find out that it's not your jam, you don't really like it, it's $7. You know what I mean? Like a cup of coffee, and you can know. And if you go through those videos and you're like, wait, this is what I want to do, or, you know, you do the math and you can figure out like, hey, I could make this much, and I have a group of people that I know that would have my first party, and, you know, whatever. Then you can join Sign Party Central, and we'll get you into more in-depth things there.
Love it. That's cool. So you said you're working on your Sign Party Institute right now? Is that what you said?
Yes. Yeah, I am. I'm about halfway done. But I literally want to have videos and walk people through every single scenario, troubleshoot from A to Z, because I didn't have any of that, and I just know how valuable that would have been for me if I could have just had a video or someone to go to and ask these questions. So if someone did click on that, it just goes to sign up to get on the notification when it's ready.
I love it. This is so cool. I love it. Anything else that you want to highlight on your website for us?
Not really. I think somewhere on there is a picture of my family if you're interested. But yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, the members can log in on my website. Everything is just right on there. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's great. So tell me a little bit about your Facebook group. I know there's obviously a lot of overlap of what we just talked about. But when people go to your group, what kind of people is that group for? What do you do in the group? That kind of thing?
A lot of people, so it's a learning group. A lot of people go there to ask questions. You know, I'm having my first party. Is there anything I should bring that I might forget? Or, you know, just all that kind of stuff. Or people posting a lot of pictures of their parties that they've done. A lot of excited people when they just host their first party or their second party, and everybody's so excited and the signs turned out great. A lot of people sharing that. Because I have built a community of super helpful people, it is amazing that you can go to that search bar at the top of the group and literally type in, you know, paint, and you'll get a ton of posts that will come up. On like what kind of paint you should use, or, you know, what people suggest or what's worked for them or so forth. And so in that regard, I love it. There's like zero drama. Everybody is super helpful. So it's for people who are doing the parties, but also for people who are just kind of lurking in there, wondering if this is something that they want to do or how they could do it, and so forth. And then you get me coming in, you know, every once in a while and sharing my life and sharing my stories and my encouragement and whatever. So 2 things real quick. Everybody who's in the chat here, if you have experienced any of Dawn's content, or if you're in her group, let me know in the chat. I would love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on there? We had one, KT said, Dawn is amazing. So much drive. That's fantastic. But I'd like to hear from more of you. And then I just want to make another comment based on what you just said. One of the strengths of a group like yours is that the topic is focused for a purpose, right? Right.
And so when you come there, you know what you're coming there for. And so it's not that people can't ask broad questions, because they could. But when you come there, oh my goodness, I'm going to be able to find the information I need, because this is typically about sign parties and related items.
Right.
As opposed to going to a wildly general group that definitely has sign party people in it.
Right.
But it's all over the place.
Yes.
So definitely, if you're doing sign parties, or if you're considering it, jump into Dawn's group and see what that group can do for you. Let me see. Becky says, I'm in both of Dawn's group and loves the content. That's great. KT says, in Sign Party Central since day one.
Aw, an OG. I love it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So I've just really been enjoying watching your journey from as a lurker. It's great. Of course, you and I both know that we love when people actually interact. It's like, thanks for being a lurker. Go ahead and like, comment, and share.
Yeah,
that's great.
No, and that's the thing with like having a group so kind of niche down, is that I may not have the growth as some of these other groups that are out there, either in the craft world, the wood world, the laser world. But I feel like the people that are there want to be there because of that content, and there's not so much other noise going on. It really is like, about signs, about parties, about kits, about, that sort of thing. So, there's not a lot of like fluff or noise, like I said, which is great.
Yeah, I think that's a real strength. I really do. And I know I won't speak for you, but you can either relate to it or not. But I know, when did you start your group?
The end of 2018.
Okay, great. Yep. I know for me, our groups are a little bit different for different purposes. But I know for me, I put off starting a group for a long time because people kept saying, Mark, start a group. And I kept saying, what for? I mean, there's so many other groups out there. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to be another group. And because I didn't have, sign parties, that wasn't, and I don't, And so I kept putting it off, thinking, I was saying openly, if I can't do something different, I'm not going to do another group. And then I finally did. It's been a year and a half since I started mine. But I said, if I can't bring something different to the table, I'm not going to do it. And so how different is mine? I don't know how different it really is, but it's mostly focused on me and how I can help people and maybe some of my encouragements and my Monday motivations, that kind of thing. It's morphed a little bit, but all that to say, even mine is a little bit broad, and it's narrow in terms of its Big Blue laser designs mostly, but it's still lasers and that kind of thing. So we do get a scattering of questions, and that's a strength and a weakness, right? Both.
But I mean, honestly, as an outsider looking into yours, I feel like the difference with yours is you have that heart to teach, and not to say that the other group owners out there don't, but I feel like you do a really good job at coming across as being like, this is my heart to teach you guys and to help you. And I don't think that every other group has that feel, and you've done a good job too at kind of, honing in on your community and trying to keep it that way, right? With comments and people in there, you want them to be as helpful and encouraging as you are to others and so forth, which is hard as a group owner, to kind of keep people on the straight and narrow, like, okay, let's keep focused here or whatever, be nice. But I feel like your group, you can definitely tell that you have a teachable spirit, and not a lot of people come off that way. So,
well, thank you. And I didn't pay her to say that. So this is really great. I appreciate that, because I think you know what I mean when I say this. What you're trying to do is not always what comes across.
Right.
And it's nice when someone says, hey, I see what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And I think we're both in the same boat there. Wendy, I've been in Sign Parties 101 for quite a while. So that's great. Wendy Martin Yates. So that's another, that's great. You got a lot of fans. So we got a couple more minutes. I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to talk for another minute to give you time to think, rather than just,
Okay.
You know, if you think about people who are coming into sign parties, they're new, they're brand new, they're coming to you in your group, they're coming to you in your website. What is one or two common things that they're kind of tripping over right in the very beginning that maybe they're looking for help for? What is really common questions, really common frustrations that they have, and maybe some of your thoughts? Maybe you can give them one tip here. I mean, besides come to my group, which is obvious. But what are some?
That in the memory.
Yeah, right. But yeah, what are some
Okay.
common things?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest one that I hear is how to get the word out about my first party. So I always tell people the first thing that you need to do is have a practice party. And by that, I mean, get like just two friends, or maybe it's your mom and your sister, or two neighbors, or whatever, two people plus yourself, that you're going to instruct those two people on how to make a sign or make your project. It doesn't even have to be a sign. You know, now with the laser, of course, when I started with stencils, that was signs. But now with the laser, you know, you can do, if you love to make a certain project, maybe one of Mark's files, do it in a party-like setting. So whatever that project is, it's different making it yourself than teaching other people how to do it.
Yes.
For those of us who've done parties, I had to become the paint police because adults do not understand the concept of little paint. And so things like that you don't think about when you're painting it yourself, but when you're teaching other people, you have to think about those kinds of things. So get those two friends, teach them how to make a sign, and throughout that process, take pictures of them doing it, take pictures afterwards, and be excited. And then you post those, and then you say, I'm looking for my first host. You will get a free sign or a free project if you have people come over to make this project. And by using those pictures, a lot of people don't even understand the concept of like, what's a sign party? I don't even get that. Or like, what do you mean? And so by having those pictures, you can be like, this is what I mean. And you put those pictures up, and then people are going to feel like they're missing out on the fun that you had, and they're going to want to host your party. And so, especially if they get a free sign, I always say, give the free sign to the host for, you know, putting on the party for you. And that is how you get over that first initial, like, how do I even start this? Start with two friends and then post those pictures. So
that's great.
That's probably the main question that I get, is how do I get that first party started? And then kind of off from that, the second question I get is marketing, right? Like, how do you market? How do you get your name out there? And I will say this, the number one way that I have found that has worked for me, that has worked for a ton of my members, is connect with an organization that needs to raise money. So a fundraiser. And that could be a school. Every single school is looking to raise money in some way or another. So elementary schools, it could be a church group. It could be, you know, VBS, or the women's book club that meets at the church, or whatever. Or like an animal shelter. It could be the local humane society, or somewhere that's looking to raise funds. And you go to them and you tell them, I have an outside of the box idea for you guys. Here is my sign party concept. I will come to you. We will do XYZ, and you will get a portion of the profits. And
cool.
That works 99.9% of the time to get a party started. And then your name is going to be out there on that company's website, or, you know, in their advertisement that they're going to have you there. And it really, really helps to spread your name in your local community.
Well, and another thing that I'm sure you suggest this too, once the ball starts rolling, you can't do this when the ball hasn't started rolling, but every time I see you or your students posting pictures of their parties, I want to go.
Right.
You know, I want to go. And I realize if you haven't had the first one, you have no pictures. I get it. You can maybe take pictures of the signs your family made, like you said, or your friends made. But when I'm in your group and I see all these people posting photos, first of all, I just want to high five all of them,
Yeah.
and then second of all, I want to, I'm not even a sign person. Well, okay, let me back up. Everything about that appeals to me. And I am totally a chase the shiny thing person.
Right.
And so I'm like, no sign parties, Mark. No,
Yeah.
no sign parties, Mark. No. But just a side note between you and me, since nobody else is listening except 28 people, I'm looking at finding a new facility where I can actually host all kinds of things. And watching you, I'm not kidding. I'm like, I can do sign parties.
And it doesn't even have to be a sign. Again, if you have a Facebook file that you let, maybe your cute little banks, and you promote it to parents to make their kid a little bank for their birthday or whatever, have them paint it at your party.
That's a great point. Signs are what a lot of people do, but it doesn't have to be.
Right.
That's a great point.
I would say it's whatever you love. Like if you love making earrings, have an earring party. What a good idea. I have members that do earring parties, for little girls' birthdays and whatever. Like whatever you love to make, turn that into a party and teach other people how to make it, and you will see success.
That's really good. And so really what you teach, I mean, it does say sign parties, but the reality is it can be anything.
Right.
That's a great idea. Someone asked a question here. I don't know the answer. How long is the waiting list to learn after the $7 course? Is there a waiting list?
Yeah, so Sign Party Central, I have it closed.
Okay.
Yeah, the Pathway to Parties, you can join anytime. And then if you do join Pathway to Parties, you will get an invitation to join Sign Party Central, even if it is closed. But I have gone back to my original ways. I was just opening it up. The last couple of years, Sign Party Central has only been open like 2 or 3 times a year for the public. But now I'm going back. Just last month I started, or I'm going to open it for one day every month. And that's going to be on the 1st. So the first day of the month, Sign Party Central will be open. All
right. First day of the month. I'm sorry, I don't know who you are, Facebook user, but first day of the month, watch for that.
Yes.
Okay. And then Wendy commented, I've done several, back to what you said about adults with paint is what you said earlier. She said, I've done several tiered tray parties. You're right. Adults use way too much paint and waste it.
Yep. So I always put the paint on their plate. I shouldn't say always. I learned that the hard way. Yeah. And when I say, only use like a nickel size, they think this is a nickel size. And so, or they're talking and they're not paying attention or whatever. So I just started using, I just did the paint for them. So
that's funny. And that's, if we hadn't just talked through this just now, if I had said, hey, what are some of the things you learned? You would never have probably said, I learned to give them what a nickel looks like.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
But isn't that funny? The things we learned that this might just be me and you as teachers. Maybe everybody else will appreciate this for 30 or 45 seconds here. But, when you're doing things like early on, when you started doing your signs, you were probably doing some things you didn't realize you were doing. And so when you were preparing your teaching for other people, you didn't get it all onto the page right away because some of the stuff you didn't, either it was intuitive or you just didn't realize you were doing it, right?
Right. And that's where that practice party comes in, because I don't want people to go from just doing it themselves to trying to teach 20 people and they have, just sweat coming down because they're like, wait, I didn't think about this. Right. That's where that practice party comes in. And if you just do it with a couple of people and have to tell them outwardly every step, then it makes you think, and then you have all of the supplies and everything that you need. So
okay, I'm going to tell a story because it's story time with Mark. I got a couple more minutes, I'll do it. On that note is when you haven't practiced something, whatever we're talking about, for me, coming from the church world and speaking thousands of times over the years, you get good at it. Sometimes leaning on your gifts is okay. And then sometimes you lean way too far. And it's usually when you find yourself in front of a bunch of people and you didn't really prepare, and then you say dumb stuff and it makes no sense. And some of y'all will understand this. The rest of you won't. Just laugh at me. It's okay. But I have learned, if I ever talk to other public speakers, especially church folks, I usually tell the pastors, I say, hey, yes, we are learning to hear from God when we speak. Yes, we are doing that. But pretty much, a lot of church services start with music and then there's a little bit of prayer or something, and then the pastor speaks. I tell them, if you get an idea during like the prayer right before the sermon, sometimes you think that's God, but sometimes it's totally not. Okay. So here's what happened to me. I was getting ready to do one of three. I was going to do 3 services in a row, which that's a lot, by the way. That's exhausting. But I had an idea, like, I don't know, 2 minutes before I walked on the stage, and they were playing a video, and I had this idea. I said, oh my gosh, in my head, I'm going to open up this sermon with this illustration with 3 chairs. It doesn't matter what it's about, but 3 chairs. And I asked the usher next to me, say, hey, grab 3 chairs and put them on the stage. The lights were down. They were playing a video. And he goes, okay. He went up there, put 1, 2, 3. And great. And, 3, 2, 1, the video comes down. Mark comes out. Hey, good morning, everybody. I want to start by telling you this. And I said, I'm going to tell you how this sermon is going to go using these 3 chairs. And it was only in my head. It had never come out of my mouth. And I stood behind the first chair, and I told the story about the chair. And while I was telling the story, I realized this doesn't work at all, at all. But I was in the middle of the first story, and then I'm not kidding. I finished the first story. I went to the second chair, and I said, well, you guys get the idea. And then I just walked away from the chairs. Yeah. And it was horrible. And that's kind of an example of, practice first. Don't. It was horrible. I'll be honest, since nobody from Sacramento is watching, all y'all who were at the Sacramento thing on Saturday, we dialed in Sunday from Saturday. There were some things where Will and I were like, that didn't work at all on Saturday, So
review, adjust, and do it again.
We need to have a mentoring call. You need to make us better. But it's real. It's real. It's real. And I appreciate you mentioning that, because it's good for everybody to do that. Michaela said she's planning her practice party. That's great. And here's a question. Tanya said, if you offer a free sign, is there a minimum to the number of people who attend?
Yeah. So I did a minimum of 10 when I was doing it, but that was because I was in super high demand. My inbox, I ramped things up really fast. And so now a lot of times people just do a minimum of 5. Okay. I actually, if you don't want to do a full sign, let's say they only signed up 4 people. Now, again, when I first started, I wouldn't do them for less than 10 people because I know I could find a party that was going to be 10 people because of the demand. But now I tell people, you never know. One of those, let's say you just are going to have 4 people show up. One of those 4 people could be someone that knows the entire town or is related to every single person on their block or whatever. And all it takes is that one person. And so I don't like to say like, oh, well, it's not worth your time, because you never know who you're going to meet. Yeah. So especially when you're first starting out, if you're booked solid and someone wants a party of 4, another trick that I would do, or trick, whatever, a pro tip maybe, is those smaller parties, once you get busy, turn them into kit parties instead. So being like, oh, hey, that's great. But if it's less than 8 people, what I like to do is just give you the DIY kits, and you can go do them yourselves without needing an instructor there. So you can still get the income, but you flip it around and you don't have to be there. But so what I would say is, even if you don't want to do a full sign, if you have a smaller group, do a little like a shelf sitter, or if you make, tumblers, do a little tumbler for them, or, something smaller or of smaller value to you that doesn't cost so much or doesn't take so much material, but yet they're still getting something for free, because let's be honest, everybody loves free stuff, and it gets them to get people there. So, or you can even ramp it up. Like if you have if you have up to 5 or less than 5 people come, you get this little thing. And if you have 10 people come, you get a free sign. And if you have 20 people come, you get whatever. Like you can just kind of make it up. But that's kind of what I did.
I love it. That's great. Well, Dawn, this has been so great. Let's make sure, in case people got in late, they can find you where?
DawnMarieLeggett.com or at Sign Parties 101 on Instagram, Facebook, page, group.
Nice.
So.
And her group can help you if you need some mentoring. She's got some services there. She's got some free stuff in the group. She's got a $7 thing to get you started. She's got more stuff. So check it out. I'm going to ask you a softball question that I know the answer because I just want to give you a chance to say it. This isn't for everybody, okay? But can someone make full-time money doing this?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we know, let's just say it out loud. Not everything is for everybody. We
Right.
get that. We get that. But if this is for you, this can be a great side gig. It can be some great gas money. It can be some great grocery money. It could turn into more than that. It could turn into mortgage money. It can turn into other things.
Right. So I'll just say, my first party, I had 15 people come at $45 a person. So I made $675 my first party. Now, granted, I have some of my costs and everything, but that was my gross $675.
Yeah.
So even if you take out my materials and whatever, I was profiting about $500, which, I mean, if you do one a month, who doesn't want $500 a month?
In fact, I'm going to go sign up right now. I could use $500. That'd be great.
Yeah. So, I mean, it really is, if you just want to do it here and there, it's a great way to have, a couple $100 even, whatever. Or if you want to do this full time, I was making a full-time income, not too long after that. So yeah, it's definitely possible, just depending on how you want to roll with it. So
and let me kind of shoot down one thing that I hear a lot of people say, and I think you'll agree with me. They say, oh, I live in a small town. There's not enough people here to do this with. First of all, tell me how small is, okay? Because most of you, it's not 50 people. We're talking about 50,000. Or, when you say small, usually. Now, yeah, if you're in a 50-member town, that would be a little more challenging. I get that. But most of you aren't.
I'm going to look up okay, so the town that I started in, so I'm from so in Minnesota, I was in a town about 3,000 people.
Wow.
But I went to the neighboring town to start from that practice, or from that first party of those 15 people. One lady in there was like my spitball of fire that she told all of her friends and all the things. And so I kept going to her town over to do these parties. And I am positive every woman in that town had at least 5 or 6 signs from my parties, because they just kept, the same group of people. It was like, who's hosting next time? And then they go to her house, and then who's hosting next time? And I just looked it up. It has a population of, so this was in 2020. So if you go back a ways, it was even under this, was 1,400 people. So not that much, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a hick town, like it's out in the country, dirt roads everywhere. And so again, it really doesn't matter. And once you start tapping into businesses and team building parties and fundraisers and all that, literally, options are endless. So.
Well, and I tell people all the time, when you just do some of the math, some simple math, how many, and I'm not talking to Dawn specifically, but if somebody who's just starting from zero, how many parties do you need before you feel like you're busy? Not that many, right? And how many people are at each party? Typically, you're not doing a party for 100 people.
Right.
I mean, I'm curious, what is an average? I mean, I realize there's small and large, but what is an average size of a party?
So I would say between 10 and 15 people is probably an average. My first year, my average was 16. But I would say now most people that are doing parties, it's between that 10 and that 15.
Yeah. So
which I love, because then it can be more intimate, right? You don't have to have, it's not crowd control. It's really, you can talk to the people, you can build relationships, you can help them. So I like that size.
And the other cool thing is, let me say this too. I hope I'm not wrong. I don't think I am. But one of the cool things is the same people can come to a party and do it later again. Like, it's not like it's a one time, I'm never doing it again for the rest of my life.
Right.
So that's really cool. Guys,
here's the thing. I'm just going to say this quick. Here's the thing that's different too about either using your laser to do parties or using stencils. This is not freehand. So many people are like, well, I'm not crafty, I can't do that. or they've gone to a party, kind of like a canvas party where, you know, it's a lot of freehand and they're like, it didn't turn out right. It was great for like the entertainment and the night out, but my product wasn't that great when I left because I didn't know what I was doing. Whereas this is, you know, if it's a laser or if it's a tiered tray or something, you know, you can put it together, or the stencils are not freehand. And so your product looks great when you leave. So not only do you get out and enjoy the interaction with other people or the ladies' night out or the team building, you leave with a product that you're proud to hang in your home or display on your shelf. And that's what people really like too.
And don't forget the part, I did that, you know, not just hanging it in your house, but I'm hanging some I did, you know, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And of course, I guess we can end with our friend Victor. He says, I love paint parties.
Oh.
Yeah, we love Victor. Man, you are great. I'm glad you poked your head in here, my friend. Well, guys, I try to keep this under an hour. We've got 4 minutes, so we're just going to say bye. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Dawn, what a pleasure. Thank you for hanging out with me. I hope everybody checks out her website. It's right down here. Well, or depending on what device you're on, it, I don't know where it is, but DawnMarieLeggett.com. And also go and join her Facebook group. It's Sign Parties 101. You will not be sorry. And if you have any success with any of this, she would love to hear from you about that. If you have any questions, hit her up as well. If you've missed any of this, or if you came in late, hit me up, and I'd be happy to help. And Dawn will be available as well, as much as she can, to answer questions. You know what? I'm going to take one more question because I saw it pop up. Here we go. How often do you do the same project?
That kind of depends, because I leave it up to the host. So they can choose what they want to do. When I was just doing stencils, I had all my designs, and the people coming to the party could pick any one of those designs. If I'm doing a project like a tiered tray or earrings or something where it's specific, I let the host who's hosting the party and having her friends and family come tell me what they are interested in. So I could do the same parties all the time if that's what they want.
Absolutely. I love it. All right, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Dawn, don't go anywhere. We'll talk for just a minute. The rest of you guys, have a great rest of your Tuesday, and we will see you all in the groups. Have a great one. Bye, everybody.